welcome back to Route 40 Rust, and this time we're doing burnouts in the 48 Pontiac. To do still yet on the 48 Pontiac Streamliner Deluxe Silver Streak 8. We've got this eBay Chinese fuel cell to put in the back. I had to order some AN fittings to barbed fittings to kind of make it all work, so we're still waiting on those. I've got a battery tray out of a 74 CJ5 that had a straight 6 in it. That's still mostly almost all there. You know what they say, use it up, wear it out, make it do or do without, or you know, however that goes. We've got no wiring in the car, so we got to rewire the whole thing. I got some ideas how I want to do it. Cheap fuse block, make it a little bit safer. But before we can get to all that and drop her down on her all fours, we got to run some fuel line on the passenger side frame rail. I've got some 5/16 copper that I'm going to whistle on through there. Probably just land it in the trunk, wait till my fittings show up, hook it up with the rubber hose, and same up front. But I need to get all of the hardware in, so to speak, before I can start wiring stuff and know where that's going to go. So let's start with this, Millie. That way we can be done with this car on jack stands. That's a monumental moment in a guy's life when he gets the rot rod off the jack stands. You know what I'm saying? Give me slicks. All right. I think we're just going to do the same thing we've been doing. Put a ball of tape on the end of our copper line so it doesn't get plugged up with gunk as we weasel it through the frame there, and just drill a hole somewhere into the trunk and have the fuel line come out somewhere by the carburetor. Then we can make the rest happen with the rubber hose. I'm getting tired of this car on jack stands. By tired of it being on jack stands, I meant to say I really want to drive this car and do a burnout. That's what I really meant to say. Do. Oh. Perfect. Got it. All right, well, let me show you where we're at. We'll start with her going away end, because that's oftentimes her best end. Oh, I don't know. I wish I could leave it unlocked and get the key out, but I don't think I'm clever enough to figure that out. All right, so we got our eBay fuel cell, which is really just an aluminum tank, and we got our copper line. Might not be able to see in there. Copper line's just popping out of the trunk. Forget which one is which. We got a vent, a return line, and the pickup tube, and a fuel sender. The gauge. So what we'll probably do is take all this nonsense off and mount our electric fuel pump. You know, ideally you want them lower than the tank so it gravity feeds the pump, because, you know, they don't like to pull fuel, they like to push it. But for this purpose, it's okay. As long as you're close to the tank, you're doing a little bit more pushing, unless it's not primed. So we could go up here, which is a couple inches, you know, below the top of the tank, or we can go all the way down. I'm envisioning something like that. So something along those lines. Still waiting on fittings, so we can't really land that, and we're not wiring up the pump right now anyway. So let's yeah, trunk light on a switch. That's fun. I did find a newspaper in here from 1961. That's also cool. Well, the keys live there now. We got the copper line ran and just temporarily zip tied, and by temporarily I mean it's permanently going to be temporary. And then I swooped up here, and I did have an assortment of filters, which, you know, like the Wix 33003s or whatever, the 002s for the 5/16 application. And we already got the filter on the carb. I would have liked to have one that I could see, but I'm running a brand new fuel tank, brand new fuel lines, brand new everything, so it's not that big of a ordeal. Or we could stick this somewhere back by the pump and the trunk. The reason I kind of bent her out this way is because I'm going to utilize some of this original hardware, and I already marked it out, because I think our Jeep CJ5 battery tray, this is why you squirrel away parts, ladies and gentlemen. When we kind of get to it, it's gonna kind of hang here. We'll see what group battery we need, and the fuel line's still kind of in the way, but well, yeah, I think that's where we're gonna run the battery. And that changes stuff, because I was kind of brainstorming my circuit diagram for this car on an Arby's napkin, and about how they're all wired up, but it kind of changes stuff where you want to put the battery and the fuse block that way, because I like to switch loads on the ground side. It's safer. I know nothing's like that anymore, but when I was in schools for electricals, that's what they taught me, you know, switch it on the ground side, and, you know, be a little bit safer. So I don't know, we'll figure out where we go with the fuse block, and then that'll dictate if we want to pull battery power off the starter lug or actually off the battery itself. And I think speaking of squirreling stuff away, I had a 1977 International Harvester Lodestar 1800 with the MV404, and it had a plow on it. That was garbage, but I think I saved the cables. Yep, that's good, that's nice. But I got some long battery cables, and if you're like, hey, that could be a lot of amperage draw through that much length, but it's okay, because if we're dealing with a, you know, starter that pulls how many amps, I do not know, but I know it was a 6-volt, so maybe that'll work to our favor. Oh, and I got to put a ballast resistor somewhere on that firewall too. So that's where we are. Let's put her back down. I don't like seeing this car. I come home from work, and I sometimes almost hit my floor jack handle and just ruin my whole life. So I'm gonna go ahead and set her down. I didn't fix the spot on the frame. It's just kind of rotted out where a body mount clip angle went. Not worried about it right now. And the more I spend underneath this car, like the whole broke channel cross member that the shocks mount up to, I don't know if you're familiar with kind of like old 70s or 80s Land Cruisers. You know, you just have that chintzy broke channel across the back, and it's kind of tucked into the frame, and you got two shock belts. It's rusted off the frame. which no big deal, because you can run, you know, legit 2x2 angle across there and it's gonna be stronger than that broke channel. Or you could tuck a real channel in there, like a 3x2 channel, and I don't know, not a big deal. I'd bolt it, not weld it, I don't know. Not really concerned about anything that makes it a pleasant ride. I just want it to ride. So let's get her off jack stands so I can feel better about my life. Looking good. All right, she's back down. You know what? I don't know anything about these old Pontiac shocks, knuckles. I don't even know what you call them. I don't know if you can adjust them. She's a bit of a bouncer. Anyway, so we'll deal with that one day. But waiting on parts, my AN fittings for that fuel cell and other stuff. Not too bad. Well, if you've watched this channel for any amount of time, or even followed this particular project, you've probably heard the term temporarily permanent, which seems to be kind of the motto for everything I do. And that's okay, because I just keep doing the same thing 3 or 4 times instead of doing it the right way once. But that's just how I do things, and that's okay. If you follow this project, you probably remember this little control panel thing we had on the firewall so we could control ignition coil, fuel pump, and all that good stuff without bouncing back from the key on the dash and all that good stuff. And we ripped that out. We don't need it anymore. Matter of fact, we don't have any wiring in this car anymore, but we need it because brakes are ready to go. Well, at least I think they're ready to go. We haven't driven this car. And I really want to take the time to do the wiring right now. That's a lie, I lied to you, and I'm sorry for that. Please forgive me. I don't want to take the time to do the wiring right. I just want this car to run so I can cruise it around the driveway and maybe do a little burnout in the gravel. That would be pretty fun. So we're gonna do more temporarily permanent wiring by just loosely draping hot wires through rust holes from the trunk to the fuel pump into some other things around here, and just driving around the night. That's the ultimate goal. If I can get this thing, if I can just sit on the milk crate I've got in there and move it around the driveway and say, hey, we've got power brakes on a 48 Pontiac, cool, and do some burnouts and stuff, and then ignore all the other restoration work we need to do. Let's wash it, put linseed oil on it, and probably some tire shine, and then park it over there next to the 66 and let it sit over there for a few months and ignore it until it, you know, rots away again. I did pick up more parts at the DG, because Dollar General is probably the best parts store you got, because you got coffee creamer. That's the wrong bag. We got son of a gun, Berryman's, Marvels, Morgan Brake Clean. And matter of fact, I bought all this cheaper, like $2 or $3 cheaper than you would at a parts store. And I just went to DG. It's that. Oh, and I got some coolant there because I did move the gauges under the dash, if you remember that. And I think we lost a little coolant in the head, or it doesn't really have a head. We lost some coolant, swapping gauges around. So we need to top that off. Start draping some wiring everywhere as fast and as sloppily and as haphazardly and as dangerous as possible. And let's play with the Pontiac. Sound like a plan? Sounds like a plan. Oh, better put this coffee creamer away. Well, to simplify and to expedite this, I'm hesitant to call it a wiring job, but the laying of copper, insulated copper, throughout this vehicle I just need some hard landing spots, you know, like a coil, a battery, starter, an alternator, you know, the actual fuel pump itself, and my ballast resistor. And I've got this cheap little fuse panel. It says that it's good for 100 amps. I don't believe that for a second. I'm not going to push it. I know right off the bat we'll run fuel pump and, you know, maybe ignition off of it, just to give us a fighting chance of not burning to the ground, since we're just running, you know, wire through rusty holes. So we're gonna go ahead and land this, just pick a spot, stick the ballast on there, and pick a spot next to the battery tray. If you remember that old rusty CJ5 battery tray, I got it all painted up and installed. Works pretty good in a pinch, so we'll stick this close to that. And now we've got some goals for our wiring to reach. Interesting thing about this ballast resistor, I picked it up, no specific make or model that I remember. It's just because they had it and it was like $4.87. These two terminals are your typical 1.5 ohms, so I'll run that to the ignition coil. But interestingly enough, these bottom two, I think I rang it up at 4.5, maybe 5.5 ohms. Now you've got me curious, because I can't remember. Gotta let those ohms settle, you know. I'm at 5.2, so we'll call it, you know, anywhere between 4.5 to 5.5, or we'll just call it 5. That seems like the right thing to do. Really can't trust these Wuhan wrench meters anyway, can you? At any rate, seeing as how this ballast resistor has a little setup for that'll knock you down a little bit, we might be able to save on some of these old 6-volt components that I can't really replace. It's just part of the, you know, design and the beauty of the car, like the clock on the glove box, maybe some gauge stuff, I don't know. We might be able to just run it across this 5 ohm ballast resistor and, you know, run that clock. So we'll keep that in mind later on down the road. Or better yet, we might be able to keep all the lighting 6-volt. I really don't know. We'll have to test it. That would save us a step of going through all these lights and replacing bulbs, which tail, turn, you know, that's all doable. But the headlamps, you got to buy a new assembly, being a sealed bulb that it is. So that might, you know, save us a buck or two. We'll go ahead and bolt this and the fuse panel on and start getting this jalopy moving. Speaking of jalopy, remember when The Rock used to call everybody a jabroni? I used to call everybody a jabroni. Yep. Good spot for a fuse block. Not ready for a wire yet. I'm using the wrong wire to this fuse block. If, for whatever crazy reason, that you were really going to run 100 amps through a $5 fuse panel, you would want like a 4-AUG American Wire Guide. I think that's what it stands for. American Wire something. Anyway, to handle that. I don't have that, but I'm not running 100 amps, and that's why this is temporarily permanent until it all catches on fire. Nothing I drive or own uses blade style fuses, so I had to dig around in some ashtrays of various vehicles and got a couple 10s. That'll be enough for an electric fuel pump and, you know, protect my bad wiring to the ignition. Now I did, off camera, scrounge through my wiring pile, which is very robust. And I got various cables, I think from a snowplow on the International Lodestar I had. And it was enough to where I could go from the alternator to the starter to the starter to the other side of the car here and hit the battery. And speaking of Dollar General and automotive parts, there's a gas station down in the village that you could buy a battery terminal, like the clamps, you know, terminal clamp, for like 99 cents. So I grabbed a few of those. That saves probably like $15 at the auto parts store, and you got to drive to an actual town. So I didn't do that, but I did run some battery cables. So that's that. Let's drop this battery in here and start landing some more wires. Here's this battery tray out of the 74 CJ5. It's got an elbow that goes up there and some mounting holes there. Still a little flimsy. It did have some tube steel that went on the bottom. Don't know if I need it yet, but we'll circle back around and deal with it. But let's get a battery in there. Oh yeah. I know I sound like a broken record when I keep going on and on and on and on about getting parts at junkyards. The reason why is stuff's just so cheap. I mean, you could just have a wagon full of stuff and that'd be like 40 bucks, or what's it worth to you? You know, and it really saves on a project, especially nowadays. Everything is just so expensive. I know not everybody's got the storage for a bunch of junk parts, but you can try. We got some wire. We've got wire. Okay. Before I show you the nonsense that is the fuel tank situation on this car, I gotta ratchet strap it down for now, because it's actually the nicest part we have on this car. Got it on eBay, $108, and maybe $20 in AN fittings. So I'm gonna go ahead and find two big rust holes down to the frame and just ratchet strap it in there. I chose green because I feel like it really brings out the color in her eyes. And it was the first ratchet strap laying in the barn, which is a mess. I can't find nothing. And the goats are eating their house. That's awesome. And then I'll get you in there and show you what's going on before I run the wire up to the fuse block for the fuel pump. But we are quickly getting closer to driving her. Like for real driving her. Maybe not for real, like put her on the road and go to the store kind of driving her, but enough that we can start calling it a car driving her. Let's strap this in. Tell you what, sometimes when you're really hacking a job together, you'll still surprise yourself. Like, you might think this is for filling the fuel tank, but it's not. It's for looking at your ratchet strap that holds everything together. Well, like I said, we're just gonna drape wire through rust holes. Maybe just kind of wrap it around this block of wood. Got a little switch here for the fuel pump. Some window pieces. Ooh, trim. Maybe we'll put that on. Bolt marker, trim, some cable, a depleted fire extinguisher. Wonder how that happened. We'll take that along with us. These things get sour. It's a bad idea. Let's check the engine bay. Well, looks like we got everything ran. The bare necessities: ignition to the ballast resistor, coil. That ain't right. Yeah, it is. We got ignition from the battery with a fuse. That's good. What do we just run? We got our cables. Got our primary and the fuel pump wire we just ran. There's a lot of things that I want to run on this car that are just not set up yet. Like maybe the field wire to the alternator. Well, I guess we could charge. We could charge the alternator. Remember, we still got to circle around and redo this bracket for this 12-volt conversion. But we can just, being the technology of the GM1 wires, just leave it on field 2 and I guess go clip down to here. That would excite it. It excites me. So there, we can switch. That we could charge. But no, in all reality, this wire needs to go to the dash and probably put a voltmeter on it. And we could switch it there if we wanted to. Think. Because we're rushing this along, I know. And we've got a lot to consider when we first let this thing fire up, because well, the brakes, it's gonna feel a little weird. I'm gonna guess it's gonna idle a little high, pulling vacuum off the brakes. So we'll just note that. We got to keep an eye on oil pressure because we ran a new copper line on the block all the way up through there to the gauge. Coolant, probably low on the high elevation condensation. So let's top that off, do a once over. I'll show you what's in the trunk and we'll go from there. We still haven't changed the oil on this engine, which to be fair, we really haven't ran it much. I did check it after we soaked the cylinders down in a concoction. But you might as well run it a little bit with some Marvel Mystery oil, and I'm pretty sure that thing's just got like paraffin oil in it and, you know, white gas, and I'm guessing just kind of oily fuel based stuff. So I don't really know, something that makes airplanes crash, I think. I don't know. Dollar General had it, so we'll just let that sit. Double check wiring. Yep, wiring is good. Oof. Let me get a headlamp so I can show you the disaster that's in the trunk. Where's the headlight? All right, so I'm not proud, but I'm also not ashamed. If you want to judge me for this work, go ahead. I ain't mad. All right, so here's our 15-gallon eBay Chinese fuel tank, which actually has amazing TIG welds on it. I figured for $100 I'd get it and have somebody fix it, but it's pretty nice. It's got a sending unit. We got a vent where I just got an AN barbed fitting with a hose that I tucked down the frame. We'll probably put a vent hose on it properly like that you'd see on a differential. That's for a return, which we're not using unless we have some fuel pump pressure issues. Another AN fitting for the main fuel line that is just generously looped around to that 5/16 copper line that we ran under the car when we had it up on jack stands. And there's ground. We got wire nuts, that's how you know it's quality, and it's kind of strapped down to the spare tire carrier and the frame. In the case you want to pull over and say, I wonder how my fuel tank hold downs, you can look down in there and see your ratchet strap. That's a ratchet strap hole is what that is. So that's all good enough. We might need a splash of fuel, probably more than a splash. Fill that line up, put coolant in it, put some mystery juice in it. There's an engine in it. You gotta have one of those. There's our power brakes, which is really cool. Can't wait to see how those feel. Coil, ballast is on the right stuff. Power to the fuse block. We got fuses in it. You know what we ought to do? What we ought to do before we get carried away is see if this thing wants to catch on fire. We'll let her broil for a moment and see if anything lets the smoke out. American Wire Guide. That's what it is. I don't know what I said before, but American Wire Guide. What did I say? American Wire Gauge? I don't know. AUG. Hope that radiator holds in together. I really don't want to have to braze it or fuss with it. Ooh. But so there we got. I'm antsy. I'm a little scared. I'm gonna kind of prolong this, but put some fuel in it. We'll let this fire test soak in for a minute, but don't worry, we got the depleted fire extinguisher in there, so we can just throw that at the fire. I do need to shuffle some vehicles around into places so we can enjoy the liberties of the driveway, and maybe wash it down is what I want to do, or just not wash it and put wet tire on it. That's probably the smartest thing to do. Anyway, I'm procrastinating because I'm scared, but let's do it. Might have to choke it. My main concern right now is oil pressure and fires. Ooh, fuel pump? Probably should have tested it. Oh, I hear it. Oh, I hear it. Oh. Neutral. Let's choke it. Oh. We got oil pressure. brakes. Oh, we got brakes. We got good brakes. That's gonna take some getting used to. Oh wow, that feels great. That feels amazing. Second gear. Throttle sticks. Starting to fill up with smoke in here, and against my better judgment, I probably shouldn't take it on a main road. But when have I ever been a smart guy? Seems to be a lot of traffic. And nobody's home to help me push this off the road. Water gauge isn't reading yet. That's good. I guess if it dies, we'll just roll it into a ditch and take our license plates off. First time on a main road and Lord knows how long. Downshift is weird. Oh, we should probably check the rear differential fluid. It's not running well enough to do brake stands. There it goes. Okay. So there's that. Let's take it on the main road one more time. When things are going your way, you definitely want to push the envelope. And I am sitting on a milk crate. Let's do more gravel burnouts. mess center. Probably those old plug wires rattling loose. I don't know. Or a fuel issue. Uh-oh. What'd we do? I noticed doing my aggressive frolicking, we lost all oil pressure, so I went ahead and disconnected the oil line from the block and ran it, and we got an oily mess spraying everywhere, so we definitely have oil pressures. We just probably got a bad gauge or an obstruction in that copper line, which I don't think that's the case. Not really impressed with those Summit gauges. Probably better off with those old Wuhan wrench tri-pack that you used to be able to get. They don't have anymore, so whew, that ended with a little heart-stopping action, but I think we're okay. Well, she's smoking out of every orifice she's got. That's not great, but I figure it's gonna take a while for the rings to come around and start sealing properly, if they ever do at all. If not, we just let it smoke. Some people are like that. Looks like the radiator's holding in there. We're cooling. We have oil pressure, I think, so we'll get that gauge replaced. But if the oil pressure line spews oil all over the engine, you know you've got oil pressure. And oh no. Sorry, I thought that was a different vehicle. It does burnouts. The brakes, which was the main point of this test drive, are phenomenal. A little touchy because I just don't expect it. Everything I drive doesn't have power brakes. So that feels really good. We have, you know, battery, electrical system, you know, things are happening. We still got a long way to go with this car, but now it's no longer just sitting there on jack stands, you know, taking up space. We could actually hop in it and move it around. Next step is get those seats figured out, get some upholstery done in here, because I can't drive it on a milk crate, and it's not even a good milk crate. It's like the old vintage metal ones. I can just cut it a little shorter. So get an interior in here. By interior I mean get the seat pan back in with some good upholstery work, and do these door cards, because that's a little whatever. And I got twine holding the glove box shut. That's okay too. Just one bolt holding the steering column in. And I'll tell you what, right now we are not addressing the holes in the floor anytime soon, because it's hot out and I don't do body work in the hot unless it was the Suburban, which I had no choice. But it's much better a winter project with snow on the ground. And I think our fuel tank is going to do just fine. I think at a car show this would win some points on originality. So look at that. Well, that's it for this time on RAV40 Russ. Appreciate you guys watching. I really appreciate you following along on the 48 Pontiac project. It's been, you know what, we got this car in January and had some issues, but now she's a runner and a driver, so what more could a guy ask for? We'll probably take a breather from this for now, and we got some other projects that need our attention. Maybe the tractor, maybe the Jeeps. I really need to get on the 53 CJ3B Willys, because that's kind of that's my woods rig, you know, and hunting season's coming up, so I think she needs some tires and some suspension work, steering work. There's really no rubber left on that old girl. But that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for all of you guys' help and comments along the way on all the videos on this car. Make sure you subscribe, like, comment below, and stay tuned, because we will surely have more 48 Pontiac action.